So far, we have scientific evidence for 9 different causes of depression and anxiety. 2 of them are indeed in our biology, but most of the factors that have been proven to cause depression and anxiety are not in our biology. They're factors in the way we live. Don't be you. Don't be yourself. Be us. Be we. Be part of a group.
Right. Hello. I am wearing a dress for the first time in a very long time. And I feel really weird not being in pyjamas or activewear. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Melanie Murphy and I am an author as well as an online content creator. I have so far published 2 books with Hachette Ireland. So my first book was aimed at teenagers and it's just full of life lessons and some experiences that shaped me, and I wrote that for my audience at the time. And then after that I wrote my first novel. She was called If Only, and she was about a woman who gets given a magical family heirloom which enables her to experience parallel versions of her life. Both of these were bestsellers in Ireland and I'm very proud of that. They were in the top 10 Irish charts. I feel incredibly lucky to be having another novel published by Hachette Ireland, and I'm just finishing up writing that now. So I thought that was a really good time to do a Q&A, like writing video about writing and the book and stuff. Decided to go with Glass Houses as the title, and it's a book about reconnection between family members, reconnection to the self, to nature, to others. It deals with a relationship between 2 sisters, a lot of mental health stuff, and you can read a blurb down below if you're interested. I'll link that down there, and if you want to pre-order it, it would massively help me out. I'd be so chuffed. I got your questions over on Instagram, and the first question, I'm answering this question first because it came up a lot with other people who like writing, and it will lead me very seamlessly into today's video sponsor. Do you fear reading other books while writing one will influence your writing? You probably hear all the time from writers about the importance of reading if you want to write well. It's very true. I feel like I have to read every single day. However, when I'm working on especially a fiction story and I'm trying to develop the voice, the story, the plot, everything like that, I don't like being influenced by other fiction writers. So I'll go for more non-fiction, I'll read more poetry, and I'm more drawn towards other mediums of storytelling like TV shows and games and stuff. Games wise, I like anything relaxing, so something I've already played to death on an old games console or something like this. So quick word from my sponsor, Wooga, who made the very popular game June's Journey, which is massive. It has like 30 million fans around the world. This is a free to download hidden object mystery game set in the 20s, and it is just so ridiculously beautiful. A couple of you sent me pictures of the character before telling me that I look like her. Oh, she's lads, oh my gosh. Freaky story for you though, right? So firstly, I love Wooga because they really believe in the importance of representative narratives and representing diverse cast of characters. That is so important to me. Like in my first novel, I had intergenerational relationships going on. I had people of colour, sexualities other than straight, you know, and same thing in my new book. The reason I really wanted this sponsor for this specific video is because it's called June's Journey. I got chills when I got the email, right? Because June is such an important character in Glass Houses. She is dead. She's not even like physically in the book. It's a game that involves sisters as well, so June is trying to solve her sister's murder, and I was just like, I feel like if you're watching this video, you like storytelling and relaxing escapism type stuff. I've linked it down in the description box, and yeah, if you're a fan of gorgeous artistic imagery and just zoning out when you're super stressed, it is an utterly lovely game experience, and it gives me the kinds of vibes that get me feeling creative again. Yeah, in a way that doesn't like overly influence my writing style or whatever. You know, I started Glass Houses quite some time ago, but I have had pauses in the writing process. I got pregnant, we had a pandemic. It's been a time. It's been very difficult, I feel, to push on with this project. But I challenged myself, and I really believe in discipline. So we're here. I'm nearly finished the first draft, and then begins all the work with rewrites and my editor and stuff. So yeah, I hope you get a good bit from this video in the way of motivation anyway with your own writing. If you're just one of my readers, enjoy. How long does it take for the first draft to be written? This depends so much on the writer. Like for me, I find it takes me quite a while. Like my friend Callum can write a first draft in, you know, a couple of months. I just can't. Like, I'm not a fast writer. If I sit down and I have a couple of hours, like, I am doing super well to get 1,000 words written in a day. Average though, like 500 words. 500 words that I keep. I tend to write a lot and then like delete it. Another bad habit I have is that I will write and then the next day I'll sit down to write again, but I will just spend my time editing what I wrote the previous day, and then my writing time is gone. Can you reveal the meaning of the title of Glass Houses? Originally it came about from a couple of things. So there is a glass house, like a greenhouse, that is quite central to the happenings of the book. But also I always really loved that phrase, those who live in glass houses should not throw stones, which essentially means that you shouldn't criticize other people for qualities that you yourself possess. And that was certainly relevant. I think I do love writing characters that are very messy and like not super likable and perfect. Like, I hate reading that stuff as well, to be honest. I need me a mess to read about. It's just more relatable, far more interesting as well. How do you manage your time between being a mom and your writing deadlines? I know that if I don't work on the book at all in like over a week, I'll find it really hard to get back into it because the momentum is gone and the characters, the story, the vibe, all of it is just like out of my head. So if I'm having a really stressy work week or a week with the baby, I will just try and think about the book a lot, like in the shower, out for walks, and I feel like that counts in some way toward writing, but getting the words down on the page is what matters most. So I just have to prioritize it. Like, I have to make time for it, and it's just the part of writing that's just not very sexy. Like, writing a book is work. It takes so many hours to like this. If you just think about the amount of hours that goes into a book, the concept, any kind of planning, plotting, thinking about it, writing, fleshing out characters, working on dialogue, like working on story issues, it's so much problem solving. It's so complex, and it's a lonely thing because you're doing it all in your head, and like no one can see anything until there's something to show them. I'm one of those people where I don't really like sharing my work as I'm writing it. And I always liked the idea of, you know, the way Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, like, they had this group called, was it the Inklings or the Inkies? I can't remember what it was, but they had a little writing group where they'd all like share criticism of each other's work. And I always loved the idea of that, of like having a little group. But I am like probably the majority of writers who just, the idea of someone looking at an unfinished script, it just sends dread all through me, and I get shivers, and like even the idea of my editor reading my first draft, I hate. Like, it's ugh. When did you think of the idea, and did your ideas for the plot change much from when you first started writing? Yeah, everything changes for me. A lot of people asked about how I like plan a book, or do I plan, or do I just dive into writing? This answer will cover a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I first thought of it a couple of years back, and I first started jotting down ideas and thoughts and stuff a couple of years ago. But yeah, for like the way I kind of go about it, I'll get an idea, and often it's a scene. It's very rarely a character, and I'm like, oh, I need to know this character's story. It's usually a much more bird's eye view that I get first, and then I tend to go in more narrow. So I'll open up a Word document on my computer, or I'll open a notebook, and I will write whatever is coming into my head. So it can be the most general ideas, like thoughts, like where it might be set or who it might be about. Usually it's like kind of like an elevator pitch style thing that I'll write down first, and I'll just start writing whatever's coming into my head to kind of fill out the idea. Like, my ideas are always quite baggy at the beginning, and I have to spend quite a bit of time just thinking. But very quickly I knew that this was told from the perspectives of two different sisters. I very quickly knew a lot about this book, and it just kind of filled itself in, as it tends to do for me. It's just amazing how stuff just writes itself if you just give it some time and space to breathe. So I knew it would be told from the perspective of two different sisters. I knew that there would be let's call him a love interest, though he he really is not, that there would be a triangle of sorts, and that this love interest's father, who is a retired doctor, would be very important to the story. And then I knew that there was just all these other characters, the girl's mother, like the two girls are very different. They're keeping things from one another. Going back to that question though about the idea. So I read this book called Lost Connections, and the author of that book is actually in the acknowledgements. And I kind of want to dedicate him as well, because it's an amazing book about depression and anxiety. But there's a real life story that he touches on very briefly in Lost Connections, and it inspired so much of the novel. It's just kind of this passing thing he mentions, but I really love drawing from real life for books, even if it's not my own real life, you know. The idea of a group of people being brought together, people with different mental health issues and stuff like that, and nature and connection and bonding, helping them to heal and to move forward in their lives, I just thought was really beautiful. And this is before COVID, by the way, so like I just feel it's very strange how everything happened. Like it just, this book I feel will be a great read for people coming out of COVID and isolation. Yeah, I don't want to give away loads of spoilers, but yeah, so much is different now, and I don't know if that's in a good way or a bad way, but just as you're writing, the story just grows legs and walks away, and you just follow behind it, like watching what it's doing. It's really weird. It's my favorite thing about writing, and it's why I will always write, even if I never get another publishing contract. What do you think are some surprises in writing a book that people are not so aware of? It's like therapy. It's free therapy for me anyway, because you know, even if you don't leave the stuff in, but like through different characters and different scenes and stuff, you lay out so many of your innermost thoughts, and even though you're using your imagination for a lot of it, like it's coming from somewhere. It's not, you're not just plucking things from nowhere. A great example of this, say with Lord of the Rings, the author's experience fighting in a world war, you know, that really, really impacted him. And there are scenes, even though he didn't intend Lord of the Rings as an allegory, places in the book, scenes like the dead marshes, like these waters filled with dead bodies. Stuff just comes from in here. And it might be an experience, it might be, you know, a person or a story you've found out from a YouTube video, from like a vlogger. It might be stuff you've heard family and friends talk about. Like so many little things like work their way into books. However, I'm also very conscious that, say, writers like me, for example, you guys know so much about me that it would be very easy for you to see parts of me in all of the characters or in different story elements and stuff. Like in If Only, at the time I was writing this, I was really super worried about my fertility, and so that came through a lot in the protagonist. I had left a very long-term relationship that I was very unhappy in, and that happens in this book, although it's all very different, obviously. And I actually based Erin from If Only on other people that I know, but yeah, like little things will definitely work their way in. So one of the characters in Glass Houses, she uses an e-cigarette, and she always uses like strawberry vape stuff, and that's based on someone that I know very closely. So I take little things like that. And yeah, why am I talking about this? Like there's a question here, do you plan or do you just write? Are parts of your stories related to your personal experiences / life? That kind of covered that. Someone asking about where do you get inspiration from your characters from? Real life, other stories, or your imagination. A combination of everything. Like I don't even know where they come from, and they come alive on the page as I write them, influenced by anything and everything and everyone I've ever known. A book just appears from the sky. Suddenly this lump of dead tree is manifested with essentially like a very long movie that you look at and it plays out in your eyeballs. It's all a very magical process, and I get very excited about it. What's your advice for people aspiring to write their first novel? Oh, there was so many questions actually that like went along with this, and I'd have the same thing to answer to all of them. But just, you know, a lot of people were asking about writer's block, dealing with distractions, dealing with like worry about what people will think. Let's unpack this. Firstly, I genuinely believe that it's better to create lots of things that maybe are a bit shit and aren't great, because you are constantly exercising that creative muscle. Make them for yourself. Like, would you read it? Only time writes a book. You've heard it before. I'm saying it again. It's really true, you know. You will hit so many bumps along the road, and it's very easy to just give up and be like, oh, I don't want to do this. But unless an idea is just complete garbage, you can work out most things, I think, by reworking, by just taking a few steps back, by looking at like why can I not move forward? Something's not working that I have to solve and fix here. And that's why writing is just such a great, I'd say, life skill, you know, because it helps you to practice something that you actually need for real life, which is problem solving. Yeah, like if you have to take time away from it, just that's fine. Life happens, shit happens. And yeah, so much of it is just about carving out time in your day, because we all live very busy, mad lives nowadays. Like, you've got work, you've got family, you've got social life, and then your attention is being constantly pulled from every angle. Like, you know, the Instagrams, the TikToks, like it's so easy for me even to just sit and scroll through reels on Instagram. And yeah, sometimes I'll let myself do that, but if I have a book that I want to get finished, especially when I have a deadline, like deadlines really help. Is your third book related to your last book in any way? No, they are both standalones. I probably won't write a book series for a few years. I have a book series idea based on the first book that I wrote, the fantasy book when I was younger. It was called Lore, but I have this whole series for that concept, and it would be completely different characters and world building and everything like that now, because I'm 10 years older. But I think I want that to be my first book series. How do you deal with distractions? I play music when I write. I know a lot of people hate that, but I love listening to movie soundtracks while I'm writing, or like classical music. I will either write when my baby's asleep, or I will ask my husband to bring my baby for a walk, so that I'm not wanting to just stare at his beautiful little face. And I will also turn off my phone, because the phone, it has so much power. How do you approach a publishing agency? I got so many questions about this, and like, how did I get with my publisher and all of that. So firstly, I will say the Writers and Artists Yearbook, it is an indispensable guide to the world of publishing. I believe they always come out with new editions for that. I bought one years and years and years ago. The way I got my leg in, kind of like how a lot of people who say they have like a magazine column, something like that, and they will find it a bit easier to get in with a publisher. I had this channel and I was sharing a lot about myself, my 20s, my teens. So publishers saw that there was a lot of material there, you know, and my publisher, Shet Ireland, they just like approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in compiling all of my YouTube stuff into a book, or like exploring the topics more through the written word. So I kind of got in that way, you know, like I got like a toe in, and then I was like, if I do that, will yous let me pitch some fiction ideas? And they were like, yep. So yeah, someone else asked that as well. They were like, does your publisher just let you publish books, or do you have to pitch ideas? Of course I have to pitch ideas. Like, I've pitched ideas and they've been like, no. One thing I would want to say this, just for people to learn from my mistake, just in case anyone else ever finds themselves in a position where a publisher is approaching them directly, because it does happen, like just not all the time. I kind of wish I'd had an agent before I got a publishing deal. That is mainly because I do not understand the stuff with all of the rights, like foreign rights, film rights, everything like that, and like I kind of just signed away just everything. Luckily it has worked out really amazingly for me, because my publishers are just so lovely and sweet and gave me great opportunities. Like, they sorted out signings, media opportunities through like a publicist. But I think before I sign another book deal, what I'm gonna do is just finish Glass Houses, then work on a book in my own time, and then try and get an agent for that, because I can't get an agent right now. I was actually put in touch with an amazing agent through my friend Lena Norms. She's another YouTuber. She does a lot of videos on books and stuff. But she put me in touch with this agent who she thought really like If Only, and she was really interested and we were emailing and stuff, but then she was like, I don't have anything to sell for you. Like, I think I just didn't really understand that kind of side of things because of the way I got into everything, you know. My experience is definitely not typical, but the reality is nowadays publishers are very much interested in their authors having online platforms. So if it's not going the other way around, so if they're not coming to someone like me who's already a creator, if it's a debut author who's completely unknown, they will want that author to be on their game with social media and stuff, because that's how books are sold pretty much nowadays, mostly, especially since the pandemic. It's been very important for writers to be online. Even people like Bo Burnham, you know, he vanishes off the internet and then comes back when he has something to promote, like, you know, his movie 8th Grade. Like, it's important. So it kind of makes sense for them from a business standpoint, I guess, to work with people like me who have an audience who would be interested in art or, you know, non-fiction stuff that they want to share. So yeah, like, it's worth trying to build up platforms if you're interested in creating something that you want to sell to people. And don't worry so much about numbers and having viral stuff. Like, I don't care about that kind of stuff anymore, like views, like that kind of thing. I care about the actual community that I have. You know, to have, like, say 30 to 80,000 very regular viewers is way more valuable to me and to a publisher than making clickbait videos that pull in random people who don't really care about you and don't really follow along with your stuff. So yeah, you don't have to reach for the stars. You don't have to be the kind of person who's pulling in 10 million views per TikTok. You just have to have a nice little niche community that's all yours. And I feel like we are all quite similar people with a lot of similar interests. Well, from the commenters anyway, if you don't usually comment on my videos, leave a comment on this. I love reading comments from people who've never commented before, and they always tell me, they're like, I've never left a comment before. But how do you make conversation feel authentic and know what they want to say? Honestly, like, if you're reading a book that you're really into, a real life conversation wouldn't go that way, but there's a very delicate balance that you have to, like, a tightrope you have to walk. Like, it can't sound too, you know, hello Bob, how are you today? Oh, thank you for asking that, Jimmy. Actually, like, it has to sound like people would actually say the things that they're saying to one another. But every sentence has to be there for a reason. Like, everything you put into a book, every line, every paragraph, it all has to be moving the story and the plot forward. So you do have to really think about the dialogue. Like, how can I make this sound like it would actually come out of a person's mouth? But also, is it going to serve a purpose? It's hard. It sounds so much easier than it is. That is weird, isn't it, when you think about it? You're kind of just like playing God, and there's just all these, like, look at my fingers, like in my new book there's just all these people, because I've got this big group of people and they're all very different from each other, and when they're talking to each other, it's like I'm dipping in and out of each of their heads and their backstories and stuff like that. And it's weird. What character do you like the most? I personally like the retired Dr. David the most. However, the most fun character to write is called Nathan. He is fabulous. I'm not gonna tell you as much more about that, but I just really like writing his dialogue. I feel like he comes alive on the page the most. How do you find the confidence to continue writing if you're unsure others will like it? For me personally, it's been having a YouTube channel, because obviously a lot of people are not gonna like the kinds of videos that I make, and I have been doing that for 8 years, and I've learned to be very comfortable with the fact that things I make are not going to be to everyone's taste. What I would say is, if you would read what you've written and you like it, there's a very high chance that there will be other people who like it. Someone asked about criticism as well, like, how do I deal with criticism on my writing? How I deal with it now, and it would answer the other question as well, is that I just think of, like, my favourite books, my favourite films, I will go to them on Goodreads or you know, any of the movie review websites, and I will just, or like on Amazon, whatever it is, and I will just look at how many horrible reviews there are, as well as like glowing reviews and kind of, oh, it was okay reviews. And I just sit back and accept and realize that it just, criticism and just people not liking your stuff, that's just part of it. Like you can't try and write something that everyone's going to love, or be upset that people are not going to like your stuff. Something that I have had to grapple with, and I've improved massively with this, but even when my first novel came out, it really bothered me if I would read a review and someone would say something that was just flat out not true, like as if they hadn't actually read it. Like if someone actually said that, I think it was something that like the character of Reed in If Only was like a gay best friend who was just there and had no storyline, and he was just kind of the typical gay best friend thrown in for a giggle, something like that. It was on Goodreads, I think, and I jumped in and I replied, and I was like, actually no, like he has his own storyline, he has unrequited love, and he's trying to come to terms with having this obsession with someone who's never going to love him back, and blah 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 blah. I kept going on a bit, and I was like, Melanie, what are you doing? Like I can't control someone else's take or how much of it they've read, or whatever. So, you know, people will misinterpret things, people will hate your characters. Like quite a lot of people really dislike Erin from If Only. I disliked Erin from If Only, you know. So yeah, but as I said, that I prefer writing and reading characters who aren't, you know, hi, I'm great. But it's difficult, and knowing that people might just dip in and dip out, or might not understand something, or might just flat out hate something that you've created. Like they're just things you have to accept and deal with and learn to live with if you're going to produce any kind of art. I know most YouTube vlogs are literally not that creative, but I have posted a lot of videos on this channel that are more creative, like more artsy. I had the short film and the documentary, and just like certain videos I'll put much more time and effort into, like giving them a more storytellery vibe. And yeah, and people might not like them, like they'll get some thumbs downs. You focus on the positive. Like most people have been really lovely about my videos and my books, and the same, like if you make something, like if you put time and effort into it, I'm sure the majority of people who give it time will have something either positive or constructive to say. Because there's a big difference between constructive criticism and just like negative criticism or hateful criticism. Like we all know the two types of those, the two genders. Is that meme even relevant anymore? Probably not. Do you ever struggle with doubts concerning the relevance of what you're writing? Oh yeah, all the time. I would love to write something that like perfectly captures the zeitgeist, but I don't think anyone ever intends for that to happen. Like you just can't. Like you can't. I try and not get wrapped up in, oh, how many people will read this, and like how can I capitalize on this or that or the other. And I usually have a core story that I want to tell, and that I think, you know, oh, if that was a movie, I'd watch that. No, I don't let that worry guide what I do and don't write, if that makes sense. Do you work with an editor, and if so, how do you find they help? And brackets, I'm an editor. Oh, editors are so important, like so important, because they're looking at your work objectively and they help you shape it into the best shape it can be. We didn't actually have very much time to edit If Only, because I was really bad with hitting that deadline. So I feel like we could have done a lot more work on it. But here's the thing, like, and my editor said this to me as well, you know, a book will never be done in the writer's eyes. Like the worst part about writing a book is the bit where it goes to the bookshops and you can't edit it anymore, and you're like, fuck, like, it's so scary. Because I've been too scared to just pick this up and read it cover to cover, because I know I'll see so many things that I'm like, why did I pick that word, and why did I do that, and why didn't I write in a different tense, and I should have built on that more, and I know I will experience that. I haven't even listened to the audiobook, and I hear that the actress is very talented. I heard like a snippet of it, but I've just been too scared to, because writers were very self-critical in that regard, and I just feel like I'd just never be done. So you just have to, at some point, like, you're like, is this finished enough that someone else could read it and get from it what I'm intending them to get from it? And you just have to pick a point where, you know, right, I let it go. Be free. Fly, my birdie, fly. My editor, we worked a little bit more closely on If Only, because it was pre-pandemic. But with this book, I just kind of sent her the first couple of chapters and a synopsis, and she sent me back some notes, and she was like, I think you should focus more on these kinds of parts, and I'd love you to build on this thing. And but yeah, she hasn't actually read it yet, and I'm so scared that she's gonna hate it, which might happen. But sure, then we'll just bash the shit out of it until we're both happy enough with it, because there's a contract signed. Is it easier or harder to write fiction in this boring dystopian time? So much harder. I don't have real life encounters and little conversations to spark ideas, and to, like, I just don't have people I can bounce off, and it's so difficult to be inspired right now to write, honestly. And actually, the way the world has gone, I feel, has heavily influenced the book. I don't know if that'll be immediately apparent, and let me know after you've read it if you thought that the experience of the pandemic was influencing the story. I feel that it is. Does negativity around YouTube authors still get to you, or do you feel you have earned your stripes now? I suppose, yeah, like the assumption that I have a ghostwriter, like some people still think that, or think that like I have loads of help, like someone kind of sitting down, like pushing the pencil across the page, or like holding my hands on as I type. But there is a lot of general negativity about YouTubers writing books, like people thinking it's all about money. It isn't. Like my book deal for 2 fiction books was 15,000 for the advance, but when I say 15,000 euro, that's split into 2, so half of it for the first book, half of it for the second book. I've been probably working on Glass Houses now for like 2 years, I don't know how long, and then 20% goes to my manager. Like my first book I think was 4,000 euro advance. That might sound great to someone who's 18 and is like, I want to be a writer and stuff, but you know, if I could definitely not live off this. Like I make more than that for one brand deal, so I do a lot of brand deals, and I get money from my YouTube AdSense, and then I get licensing money, and I have multiple streams of income. You have to. Most writers, the huge majority of writers don't survive solely on their income from writing, so it's really important to work with to have other jobs. Does the negativity still get to me? So it gets to me in the sense that, like, I feel like I may not be taken seriously by some people. As soon as they hear that I'm a YouTuber, they might go, ugh, I'm not reading that. I'm not even giving that the time of day. Though stuff that makes me feel better about it, I suppose, is like, for example, If Only was chosen for this deal. I think it was BookBub or something. And anyway, it was pushed out to all these people in like America and stuff like that through some online like email newsletter. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was included in a deal where it was sold for super cheap. But something like 4,000 people who weren't followers of mine like saw that and like bought it in a weekend. And I was like, oh my god, like, and even now if I check the Goodreads reviews and like go to newest, like it's still getting rated and reviewed regularly even to this day, and it's out so long now. So that's really cool that people are still finding it and reading it, and people who don't follow me reviewing it and writing to me on Instagram after finding me through other thing, like finding me in a bookshop, that kind of, or being recommended the book, finding it on Instagram, that kind of thing. Like that kind of stuff makes me feel like, oh yeah, like I'm a writer now. Like I am a writer. I'm a published author, and people who don't know me find my book, read it, enjoy it, and that's great. But yeah, I do think I have definitely got that in my head about being like a YouTube author, and just wanting to be seen a bit differently, I suppose, like to be seen as a creator rather than just an influencer, or just this or just that. Most of the writers that I really love have had all kinds of jobs, and were working certain types of jobs when they published the books that I read by them that I absolutely loved. And if someone can be a teacher / writer, why can't they be a vlogger / writer? So yeah, I do feel like I'm slowly starting to be taken more seriously, definitely, and by other writers as well. Like I've found other writers to be really lovely and welcoming of me, but I think it's just it might just be in my head, but it's a perception out there, for sure. But no, Irish media and everything are always so super lovely when they interview me, or when they, they'll always be like, do you want to be referred to as writer or YouTuber or both? Like, they're always amazing like that. Yeah, they'll always like give me an opportunity to talk about my books if I'm on their stuff. So yeah, I feel like I've been talking for a million years, and I hear my baby starting to make noise downstairs after his walk, so I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching, and thumbs up if you would like more writing related videos, book related videos. Subscribe if you're new and you've made it this far, and thanks again to Wooga for sponsoring this video. So I'll see you again very soon. Au revoir, a kiss, goodbye.